On Halloween night of 1986, Universal Studios decided to launch their first Halloween event to make up for their slow autumn season. The concept was adopted from Knott's Berry Farm, a rival theme park which had been doing Halloween events for 14 years prior. Today, the event is known as the Halloween Horror Night, which became an annual celebration after 1992. The event contains haunted houses, fright zones, and live entertainment, many of which involve Universal Studio characters. However, the 1986 version bears little resemblance to the Halloween Horror Night of today and featured a single horror attraction known as the Terror Tram. The Terror Tram was a nighttime rework of the world-famous Backlot Tour. The Backlot Tour, also known as the Studio Tour, gives visitors a behind-the-scenes peek at how movies are made. The tour involves a tram ride around the Universal Studios set, which was part developed by Steven Spielberg. The Terror Tram was a creepy version of the tour, filled with jump scares and scare actors, who would hide and jump out and scare unsuspecting guests. The scares were billed as unpredictable, however, no one could have predicted the horror that would later unfold that evening. The scare actors taking part on the Terror Tram were volunteers who also worked at the park. A young Jacksonville High School graduate from Woodland Hills, named Paul Rebalde Brooks, was one of these volunteers. According to Universal, there was no skill involved in what he was doing for the event, so anyone could volunteer. Not much is known about Paul, except that he was liked by all of his colleagues, described as being very sweet, and was always seen with a big smile on his face. Selling toys and working as an assistant manager at the cinema booth in front of the entrance were among his responsibilities in his day-to-day job. On that night, Paul was dressed up as a corpse. He was hidden surrounded by mannequins dressed as bodies, so that guests were unable to differentiate him from the mannequins. He was supposed to leap out from among the mannequins in front of the park tram and scare passengers going by. Paul was ready and the tram was slowly approaching. Paul jumped out in front of the tram and scared the passengers when disaster struck. What happened to Paul isn't exactly known, but it is believed that Paul was over-enthusiastic in his performance and got stuck between the third and fourth sections of one of the four-section trams. He was then dragged 100 feet and crushed under the tram. Paul was pronounced dead at 9 p.m. The investigation was led by John Lynch, and they were on the scene the following day. Unfortunately, there were no findings from this investigation online, and he refused to comment on the case. But according to Joan Bullard, publicity director for Universal Studios, there was no indication that the tram had a problem or anything like that. The sheriff had told us that it was an unfortunate accident. This causes me to believe that it was concluded an accidental death. Universal Studios commented on the incident, stating, "Universal Studios Tour is extremely sorry and saddened that this unfortunate accident occurred last night at a safe and fun event which otherwise was without incident." Following the horrific disaster, Paul's body was moved to North Carolina, where he had family, and he was buried in Onslow Memorial Park in Jacksonville. Universal Studios then shut down the event for a rethink, and it didn't return until 1991, where they resurrected the idea under the title of Fright Nights. To distance themselves from the 1986 incident, they didn't use the pumpkin logo. The Terror Tram also returned a year after, in 1992, but Universal discontinued using scare actors around the moving tram. The event returned to the name Halloween Horror Night in 1992 and has been called that to this day.